Check 1, 2. I call to order this regular meeting of the Anthony Wayne Board of Education. It is Thursday, November 9th at 6 p.m. Carrie, can you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Here.
Mrs. Brent?
Here.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Here.
Mr. Lutz?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Okay, would you please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, I'd like to start out the meeting by congratulating the new school board members for next year. It was a long, hard-fought battle, and the voters have spoken. So, welcome. I think I saw Mike in here somewhere. There he is.
Lindsay's there
And
too.
Lindsay, yeah, and Shelley. Anyways, so we're changing up our order just a little bit tonight. We're going to do one of our presentations that are scheduled to be with Dr. Fritz's time, but we're going to start those now. And I guess I'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Christine?
Christine.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. For those of you that may or may not know me, I'm Christine Young. I am in charge of the Purple Star Generals, which is our military-connected youth group at Anthony Junior High. So being a Purple Star school means that you support your military-connected students, be those that are they're dependent of a family member who is active duty, currently serving. That could be Guard, Reserve, or again, full active duty. But at our school, as well as I know, Waterville also includes veterans in our community as well. So if they have a parent that is also a veteran, we include them, as well as those that are individuals that have siblings who are also currently serving as well. So in my role as the Purple Star School Military Families Liaison, I was very privileged. We were talking about how we could serve. The month of the military family is in November. And so on my the council at the Purple Star at the state level, we're like, well, what can we do to really help promote this kind of newer, thing? A lot of us know about the month of the military child in April, but November is relatively new for the month of the military family. So I asked Dr. Fritz if we could honor some of our employees who are military families. So we have actually 10 families in our district that filled out our form, and a few of them are gonna be honored tonight. So bear with me. I'm a little nervous, and I was told, and now I'm shaking that. You know, you teach with little kids, but in front of adults, man. Okay. Now I'm going to get formal, so here we go. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of our school district community, I stand before you today with a heart full of gratitude and admiration as we come together to express our heartfelt thanks to the military families within our school district. It is a privilege and an honor to recognize and appreciate the immense sacrifices they make while serving our nation. Our military families play a vital role in supporting our armed forces and ensuring the security and freedom we cherish as a nation. They endure unique challenges and face many uncertainties as their loved ones are deployed to serve in various parts of the world. It is a journey marked by separations, late-night phone calls, and the constant worry that comes with the profound commitment to protect our country. We must never forget the sacrifices made by our military families. The quiet strength, resilience, and unwavering support they provide to their service members are truly commendable. These families hold our nation together through their unwavering dedication, and we are deeply grateful for their service alongside their loved ones in uniform. So I have a few families that are here with us today. So when I call your name, if you could come up, please. First, we have the Halesko family. And then we also have the Schwan family as well. And we have a few that are not with us tonight. So we have the Reagan family, the Estes Hopprutch family, the Herbert Schaller family, the Instone family, the Nixon family, the Barber family, the Cyrus family, and the Volz family. Again, all of those members have someone that works within our district, all right, that is a military family. So we thank you for the sleepless nights, the missed birthdays, the countless moments spent away from your family members. Your sacrifices do not go unnoticed, and your contributions to our family's security are immeasurable. You are the unsung heroes of our community. As a school district, we are committed to supporting our military families in any way we can. We understand the importance of providing a stable and nurturing environment for our children your children during times of separation, and we will continue to work tirelessly to ensure that your sacrifices do not go in vain. In closing, I want to emphasize that the support, love, and appreciation we have for our military families are boundless. Today, we come together not just to say thank you, but to demonstrate our unwavering commitment to your well-being and to remind you that you are an essential part of our community. We are forever in your debt for the sacrifices you make, and we salute you for your service to our nation. So please join me in giving a heartfelt round of applause to our military families for their sacrifices, dedication, and service to our nation. Thank you, and we may continue to stand together, support one another in a spirit of unity and gratitude.
Mr. Sargent.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Fritz, members of the board. My name is Nick Sargent, and I serve on the Anthony Wayne Education Foundation. And tonight I get to give away money on behalf of grants that were provided from Dress Down Days from the teachers' donations, which they acquired roughly $4,800 in grant dollars, and we're giving away roughly $5,100 tonight. So I'm going to announce the winners. Fallen Timbers Middle School, Glow Day, 5th and 6th grade, $500. Life Skills, 5th and 6th grade, $300. Remedies for Reading Motivation, 5th grade, $300. Monclova Primary, Books for Growth, Hope, Heroes, 4th grade, $497.82. Chapter Book Study, 4th grade, $449. Sauter Book Presentation, 4th grade, $243.23. Wellness Wednesday Activities, K through 4, $81.84. Waterville Primary, Our Learning Takes Flight, K through 4, $500. The Chicken Community K, $495.67. Toledo Groves Classroom Visit, 3rd grade, $295. White House Primary, Hands-on Herpetology, 4th grade, $500. Ninja Life Hacks, 2nd grade, $442.55. And last but not least, STEM, 2nd grade, $500. So congratulations to all.
If you're one of the teachers here tonight that received one of those grants, could you stand up, please, for us? Thank you. Thank you, and thank you to the Anthony Wayne Educational Foundation for the grants and supporting the programs in our schools, and we appreciate that tremendously, so thank you.
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Christine, for putting that together. That was very nice. All right, we'll move on to the rest of our agenda now. First on is approving the minutes from our October 9th meeting. Are there any questions or comments on that? If not, okay. And a second, please.
I'll second.
And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn? Yes. Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right. Next on the list is our treasurer's report. Carrie?
Thank you. First item on the agenda is to approve the monthly financials for the month of October 2023 as presented. Under item B is to approve the donations listed, $3,645 from Hope United Methodist Church to our food service for unpaid lunch fees, and $500 from the Directions Credit Union, and this is being awarded to Lisa Dick, who's with us tonight, for the Cares for Classroom grant. So we are always very appreciative of those, as well as any donations received by the district. Under item C is to approve the return of auxiliary service funds in the amount of $9,296.15 for fiscal year 21-22 and fiscal year 22-23 per the final expenditure report. These are funds that come into the district, then they go on to the ESC for our non-public schools within the district. So we have the Discovery Center that participates, and we have Lyell funds. Those two come through. Monclova Christian Academy is a direct pay now. But they come in for 2 years, and then what they can carry it over, 1 year carryover. So when I submit it, if they don't spend all their money, and all the funds are spent through the ESC. So we send our money to the ESC, they make all the expenditures, and then they send me the final reports, I report it to the state, then they send the money back to me, and then I send it on to the state. So I'm asking that you approve the return of those funds. Those are, no Anthony Wayne funds have been unspent here. That's strictly just auxiliary funds.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention with that is, you know, we're the fiscal agent. The money is just flowing through us because that's how the state has set it up. It's not us not spending the money. It's
Correct.
definitely a situation where those monies go to an opportunity for those non-public schools. And if they don't spend the money, it comes back to us. We have to return it back to the state.
Yes.
Thanks.
Sure. Then along those same lines,
I want to make sure.
the next item, item D on the agenda, is to approve the items for disposal from Lyell Catholic Schools per their letter dated October 30th. So these same funds that are spent by flow through us to the ESC that are spent, come back, we send back. But when they dispose of items, we have to approve the disposal. So they found some iPads. They've already had one disposal for the year. They wanted to know if they could submit another one. They missed some iPads. So they asked that we approve that letter so they can dispose of those items. Next, we'll take some time and go through the 5-year forecast. The practice of the board since I've been here has been that we meet, have a work session twice a year, usually in the months of October and again in April or May. So we can do a work session, go through our 5-year forecast line by line, have discussion, feedback, input, and then we use a working copy, then I create the submit copy, and I present it to the board. Well, this year, our work session had to take place quite differently. So we had a work session on Wednesday morning at 7:30 where I had 2 5-year forecasts presented or prepared to present. The outcome of Tuesday made the decision which 5-year forecast I presented. So obviously I presented one without the levy passing and took into consideration everything that we know now. The 5-year forecast is a required document that you submit to the state by November 30th of each year, and then there is an update in May of the following year. So we'll submit this year, or this November, by the end of the month. Actually, they want it by November 23rd to accommodate the Thanksgiving holiday. And then again, in May 31st, we'll submit again to do an update. That's called the update. So we'll take a little time and go through this because there's obviously a lot to it. Well, not really, but so. I'm just going to highlight some things instead of going line by line. I'm going to cover the highlights. Real estate. This is where we would have added the levy income for here. A couple things we know about real estate is we have a mall, we've had a TIF with the mall for the last 16 years. They have a 30-year TIF, and for the first 15 years, we've been paid more funds up front, and Penta Vocational School has received less. And now Penta will receive more of their share, and we will receive less. So we'll go from receiving between 800 to 900,000 to 550 to 650,000. So we'll see a loss there. Another issue that really makes this a revenue issue is the Nexus pipeline. So just as a little reminder, or just a little history of what went down with the pipeline, the tax commissioner back in the fall, or earlier this fall in September, the tax commissioner and Nexus finally reached an agreement because they were appealing their property values. And originally, we were to be getting like close to $5 million annually when this first came out. And they were going to put their pipeline through our school district. I haven't seen any of that yet, any of that kind of money yet, but when they did start paying, well, let me explain a couple more things. So all the counties had to agree not to appeal the agreement that was made between Nexus and the tax commissioner. One county out of 13, which is Lorain County, decided to appeal that decision. So at that point, it would go to, or it went to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court had a hearing on October 24th, and basically they spent a good portion of the time trying to determine if the Lorain County auditor had the right to appeal that case or not. But then at the same time, he did get to state his case on why he was opposing or appealing the decision or the agreement that was made. So when he appealed that, that meant all districts were now put on hold from any potential agreement. And I will share, we never really heard everything about the agreement, but the highlights were that they agreed that districts would be paid at 58%. Now, that's still quite a reduction from the 100% that they advertised when they were coming out here. That's where that $5 million came from at one time. But they agreed that it was going to be roughly 58%. They would not be charged the interest and penalties assessed. Nexus wouldn't be. And then moving forward for 5 years, we would have certainty of our funding because they agreed not to appeal the values for 5 years. So that would have been nice for all municipalities that are involved. And this just doesn't affect school districts, this affects townships, anybody who has property in our district as a municipality. That being said, I think, treasurers talk like any teachers talk, superintendents talk, everybody talks. It kind of came up that they short paid in the spring of last year. So in May, they short paid the tax bill that they normally paid. So the first time I got a check in fiscal year 20, I believe it was for $1.2 million. The second year, which would have been 21, would have been 1.8 million, and then 22 was 2.1 million. Last year was 917,000. So right there, in one fiscal year, we lost $1.1 million in May, 2 months before the end of the fiscal year.
And to say lost, that means that they did not pay it. We didn't lose it, but they did not,
Yes,
right.
they chose not to pay it.
Yes, there's no money lost, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Especially, yes. So we did not receive the funds that Nexus did not pay. So obviously, moving forward, the way we have always looked at our 5-year forecast is we always include what we know. So we don't, at this point, know what our Nexus revenue is going to be. There is some talk that there could be a settlement by the end of the year. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. We don't know what it will be, but Nexus is saying that, you know, their offer that they put out on the table back in the fall still stands through the end of the year. So we'll have to wait and see. But with that, Nexus revenue would be reported in our real estate line, and based on what we know, we had to drop our estimate based on that last payment for fiscal year +23 down from basically 2 million based on what we got. You know, the pattern was there of how we were going to get the money, so we were still being conservative. So we had to drop that payment down to 1.2 million a year, and we're hopeful that we get that. But you can see taking $6 million out of our 5-year forecast, the problem it has created. The other issue with our real estate is there's pending legislation out there on House Bill 187 that is saying that, so a lot of people are talking about, oh, we're going to get additional money from the reappraisal. Well, yes, we have seen some spikes during that time, but all of our levies are fixed levies, so we pretty much receive the same thing other than we see our growth on new construction. And real estate taxes are always a year behind, and it's based on whatever the value of that property is on January 1. So if you own a piece of land on January 1 and your house is done on January 2, I know that I'm just being very, very dramatic, but basically you don't pay taxes on that whole year because your value on the first was not established. This is how the auditors always told me this, and I'm always like, oh, okay. But basically they're in arrears a year. But the new legislation is proposing that they're going to take a 3-year average to reduce these spikes in the reappraisal. So let's say that our reappraisal, which is set for calendar year '24, let's say the reappraisal is 14% as an average. And then they'll look back and say, well, the previous 2 years were 2%. Well, to get an average, it would work out that it would be 6% by taking it over the 3 years. So that's where we would see an increase. So we have that variable that plays into our forecast as well. And honestly, none of these are surprises. I just want people to understand, you know, where we were coming from in asking for our revenue in the operating levy. But with that, you can see we have a lot of variables just within the very first line item on our 5-year forecast, which happens to be the bulk of our revenue. We did receive, I'll jump down to State Foundation. We did receive an increase in State Foundation. There's a 2-year biennium budget, went into effect July 1 of '23. We see an increase in fiscal year '24 of $333,635.82. And in fiscal year '25, we see an increase of $237,741.32. And then the remaining 3 years of the forecast are flatlined at fiscal year '25, because obviously it's a 2-year biennium budget, so that will change in year '26 for '26 and '27. On the expenditure side, obviously our biggest expense is our salaries and fringe benefits. Our salaries reflect a 3% increase for fiscal year '24 and a 2.75% increase in fiscal year '25. Those are negotiated in our teachers, or both of our union contracts. On our benefits side, we take quite a bit of pride that we've been able to negotiate with our insurance provider 0% for fiscal year '22, '23, '24, and '25.
0% increases.
increases on the premium. So we've seen no increase in our premium for the last 2 years, nor will we for the next 2 years. Then we also worked with staff when we went through negotiations that they would pay an additional 1% on their premiums effective July of 2023, at the start of the new contract. The other issue with personnel services is the loss of ESSER money. A lot of people feel, where'd the ESSER money go, misuse the ESSER money. As a school treasurer, I would totally disagree with that, because I feel like we have done such good things for students with our ESSER money. But we are on the ESSER cliff now, where the funds are ending. So at the end of this fiscal year, we will be transferring back $840,381 in staff salaries that we've been paying for the last 3 years out of ESSER 3 funds. With that, on the benefit side, we will be returning to the general fund $133,459, starting in fiscal year '25. And that is the benefit side of ESSERS, which is strictly just Medicare, workers' compensation, and retirement. No health, dental, or other benefits attached,
Yeah,
so.
and when you say loss, that means that
know.
it ends versus
Yes.
the money is lost somewhere.
I know, I really have to change that word,
Sorry.
because yes, it is not, there are no lost funds.
It'll be a zero balance.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can ask
A
my
boost.
assistant. We find 50 cents on an encoding error or something with the bank, and I send it over for the correction. So loss is a very poor choice of
Yeah,
words.
no,
So
it's just,
you can-
I just
you
want to
can
make
correct me.
sure that
Yes,
Right.
people realize that,
The message is
ESSER funds across the nation that were
Yes.
provided by the federal government end at certain points.
Yep.
And the final allotment of money that the Anthony Wayne Local Schools received will end at this fiscal year, which, if you don't understand what that time frame is, it's June 30th of this year. I'm sorry, 24. I'm already ahead of
but
you,
it's always,
24.
it's always June 30th.
Yeah.
July 1 to June 30th. is
Yeah, so that's what we're referring to.
Right.
Just a couple more items. Purchase services, obviously, that is just a growing but very broad category. That is anything from utilities, maintenance repairs, bus repairs, school resource officers that are contracted, payment in lieu of transportation, special ed services for our special needs students, College Credit Plus textbooks, the list goes on. Very broad category. However, we are seeing an increase in cost in there. And then the other one is supplies. And for a district our size, $1.2 million for a supply budget is pretty impressive. One fuel is about $440,000 of that. So obviously, we are submitting a 5-year forecast that has a deficit balance in the second year. I've never done that before.
No.
So, in 33 years, I've never done that before. So, ending fiscal year '24 is projected at $1,959,416, and then we progress to a deficit in fiscal year '28 of over $10 million. But again, if you go back to the loss of revenue of almost $6 million a year, and then in fiscal year '25, bringing back, increasing our expenditures from ESSER funds being eliminated or being spent and going away, there's our $10 million. I did talk to Aaron Roush at ODE because I wanted to share the situation with him. We can submit the 5-year forecast with a negative amount in the second year. However, we will have to submit a recovery plan. We'll get a letter. We'll have to submit a recovery plan. The recovery plan consists of, cuts, reductions, going on, back on the ballot, blah, blah, blah. There's several things that we can do. With the board changing, those decisions are kind of, going to come forth in January. We'll have more discussion on those. The problem is the May primary has been moved up to March. To be on the March ballot, all documentation is due December 20th, 2023.
And you're still not going to collect that money until January 1 of
Right.
'25.
25.
Right, so there's no way to increase revenue for fiscal year '25. Then we could be on a special, other than we could,
Yeah, for half the year.
Yeah.
Half the fiscal year.
we could go on the ballot in August, but that's a special election that will cost significant dollars, so we are looking at November of '24, at our next choice for that, which affects another school year, so. Lots of work to be done as far as what goes on in the district moving forward. Obviously, the bulk of our expenses are in salaries and fringe benefits. So,
Yeah,
What's that?
let me say a few things too. For those that may not be new to, or maybe new to the district, the mall, the Fallen Timbers Mall, Carrie mentioned that. That was an agreement before anybody here was on the board, before I was even in the district as an employee, before Carrie was treasurer. That was made between the board, the superintendent, and the, city of Maumee in regards to what income would come in as far as the mall being built from a tax revenue standpoint. In that agreement, it front-loaded the money that was going to be paid by that company who owns that property for the district first, and then Penna would receive the rest of that, those funds based on what was agreed upon. And then at this point, it would switch over where they would get a little bit more than we were getting in reference to that. So just understand that we inherited that plan. It provides $600-some thousand right now. At one point, when the mall was sold, I don't know how many years ago that was, 10 years ago or so, maybe a little bit less. We had to go through some legal battles to keep that agreement in the sense of because they wanted to extremely devalue the property, thus paying a lot less taxes than that agreement. And we fought to keep that agreement because, the initial decisions were based on that agreement. And, it wasn't fair to us at that time. So that's kind of a little bit of the history of the mall. Nexus, I will mention that if you don't remember, if you weren't here at that time, I was very vocal against my opposition against the compressor station being built. Because there was no regulation other than a yearly report that Nexus had to submit that they self-monitored themselves for the emissions that would come out of the compressor station. When it was being built, they told us that they were going to, based on the compressor station being built there and the pipeline going through, we'd get roughly between $5 to $6 million, and a lot of people thought that's a great idea because it's going to help fund the schools, local municipalities and cities and so forth, generate tax revenue that we all didn't have to pay for. They moved that forward. We thought the compressor station was going to be going in. And then when they built the pipeline, they said, oh, we don't really need the compressor station. It's pumping enough from the previous compressor station, which I believe is in Castalia, if I'm correct on that, to the next compressor station. So ultimately, we have the pipeline, and we should be getting 100% of that value because it is something that goes through our district and affects our property owners and that had to give up their land to put that pipeline in. It's something that we should be benefiting from. And unfortunately, Nexus has made the decision not to pay. And that's where this initial issue came to light of, a lawsuit and by the county auditors that were affected throughout the state of Ohio. And now we're at this point where one auditor has chosen to, fight that agreement that was made, and we're all left dealing with the aftermath of this funding up and down cycle. So we'll see where that goes. And, we've, even with the mall money and other things that have come into the district, whether there be a new business coming in, until it was on the books, we never put it into the 5-year forecast because you never know what's going to happen. The Andersons building was built for, 50 or 60 million as it was reported in the Blade, and it was assessed by the auditor at less than 20 million. That's a lot less taxes than we thought we were going to get. And if you put that into a 5-year forecast before it happens, I think you're misguiding the public in those situations. Obviously, the operational levy would have, allowed us not to have a negative balance going forward in the years that the treasurer has indicated. But that was also for services that were going to be provided based on the very detailed description that we've had on our website for many months. And obviously, that's not going to happen now. And, there were some costs associated with what we're doing right now that we're going to have a discussion with the new board about what are we going to do to move forward. And because, as the treasurer has indicated, any service organization, whether it's libraries and so forth, most of your costs are going to be associated with personnel. It's all of us. It's not, when she mentions the percent increase that our staff had to pay extra in medical benefits, we all do that. It's not just one group. We all pay the same amount, and so forth. So, we're going to have to figure out what do we do moving forward, because ultimately that's our biggest expenditure. And just like a home, when you have a checkbook, if your revenue is going down and your expenditures are going up, there's only so much you can do, but you've got to reduce your expenditures. So we'll have to look at that and look at ways we can increase our revenue coming in. But ultimately, we know we can't rely on the state. We know we can't rely on the federal government because of the property valuation that we have in our district. Another issue that we have is Nexus is valued at 100% within our property evaluation, but we're only getting maybe 57 or 37%, depending on what they agree upon for the value of that. So that unfortunately hurts us when we get state funding because they see it as 100% of our value, but really it's not being valued at that. So that decreases the funds that come into the district from the state then. So that's another issue that's out there. And I do want to mention some comments that I've heard since Tuesday night about the levy and the administration and the bond issue and so forth, just briefly. The term mismanagement of money. We're audited every year by the state auditor's office, every year. So if somebody knows about mismanagement, please tell us. We'd love to see it. If not, then stop. Please, just stop. Because ultimately, this mistrust statement, the transparency, the accountability, it just needs to stop. If you've got something that you're concerned about mismanagement, please turn it into the auditor's office so that when we get our audit, or they'll come and do a special audit, then we can go through that process. We get X amount of dollars. We try to use fiscal conservative principles in order to administrate the services that we have to provide to students and work with our staff to do that. And I think we do a pretty good job of that, especially when you look at the results. Having the lowest school taxes in Lucas County, having the lowest cost per pupil of spending, and the results that we produce are phenomenal. And this district should be very proud of that. The staff should be very proud of that. The parents should be very proud of that. And this community should be very proud of that. When superintendents talk to me about what we're doing here for the cost, they're amazed. They're like, how are you getting that done? When Ottawa Hills is spending $17,000 to $18,000 a student, and we're $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 below that, where they're paying double, or actually more than double the taxes per $100,000 of home value, we have to question, when we're discussing, we have a great system, we need to value that, and we need to let our staff know that we value them. We need to let our parents know that their kids are getting a great education here. And I'm very proud to be a parent of 2 kids who went through the system. I do want to mention one other thing. As we talk about transparency and accountability, there are many reasons why the bond issue and the operational issue did not pass. And I take responsibility for that. I do. But I also feel it's a responsibility to have a discussion in our community about those who, behind the scenes, were the Anthony Wayne Citizens for Fair Taxation. If you look at the treasurer, James Davis, the Board of Elections office told us that that is a person at a P.O. box in Sylvania. They're not a registered voter in our district. They're not a property owner in our district. So you start to question, where did that come from? And we have a good idea where that did come from, based on people calling businesses, asking for donations, and those businesses sharing with us that that was happening, and those individuals, as well as the people that were putting up signs, which was their right to do so, in front of school buildings as they drove through our parking lots. And they know who they are. And that's okay. You can oppose it, and that's fine. But just understand the misinformation that you put out there not only damages, obviously it had an effect on the levy, but also damages the reputation of the school district. And that's what I find truly unfortunate moving forward. So hopefully, as I'll talk about in a little bit, we can find ways to communicate with one another. We can disagree. You may have voted against the levy, for the levy, but we're going to have information-seeking opportunities to understand where everybody's at with the operational levies potentials that are coming, because we're going to have to increase our revenue, and the bond issue that's going to have to happen at some point in the district. And what does that look like? And what did you feel like, and what were your reasons for not voting for it? Because we need to understand that, and we need to be receptive to that moving forward, because that's something that we need to do. And we also need to look internally at what we could have done better to educate people on our needs moving forward, and I do take responsibility for that. So that's all I have to say about that.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Any questions from the board on the 5-year forecast?
No, it's a grim reality, I will say that. And yes, I will back that up with having been here almost most of your tenure here, Carrie. We've never, I know when you first came, there was we were in fiscal caution, whichever one.
Fiscal caution.
Kind of taken by surprise on that. And I know Carrie worked very diligently to get us back in a good standing with the state. That was determined by the state, is who put us in that fiscal caution. And Carrie worked very hard with, it was a different superintendent at the time, but John Granger, but it happened quickly. We kept it as far away from the students as possible. And we've been managing just fine, always looking at the numbers, obviously, but yeah, some of I will ditto what Jim was saying, that the misinformation out there has been damaging to our district, I fear. Off my soapbox. Any other comments?
I just echo some of Dr. Fritz's comments too, I think. But I appreciate all the work from the treasurer. We've been through, she's been through lots of scenarios as we've talked through this and worked through the 5-year forecast. And it's not, you know, we always try to give the reality and not fluff it up to say, hey, we could be getting this much money. I mean, we're giving you a reality of what we're expecting. It obviously could be better if Nexus does end up paying out, but we have to look at reality, and we're going to have to make some hard decisions here soon. So there's about, I don't know, 8 or 9 pages of backup behind the actual, and this is just the top-level summary that actually goes to the state with all of our assumptions listed, and that gets evaluated, and obviously from the auditors. Just a note on that audit, too. How many weeks are they here? When they actually come with a staff of people and live here at the building to do the audit. It's not like a little check mark
No,
audit every year, yeah.
It's months. It's
Yeah.
not weeks, it's
Yeah.
months.
And they're not just
Usually
checking
here,
to
like-
make sure the
Yeah, so-
checkbook balanced. It's very scrutinized.
And it's done through the auditor state's office,
Yep.
so.
The
yes.
top auditor in the state.
Yeah, and I will mention too that, you know, the things that we have in place as far as personnel services have produced great results. I had a conversation today with one of our building administrators, and, you know, we feel like we're on all 5 cylinders, you know, and it's moving in the direction that needs to. You know, obviously, the finances are going to play into that conversation, and how do we minimize, as you just mentioned, the impact on students and staff moving forward. And it's not just teachers, it's all of us. And how do we reduce our cost and to provide the same or similar services to our students moving forward.
So one question, so this budget, if we approve it, as submitted, it requires the recovery plan, right? Filled it?
No, we'll submit this, it'll get
Follow up
flagged by the state, then they'll send us a letter letting us know that we need to submit a recovery plan of how we plan to fix our financial picture. And then they will give us time to do that before they give us a designation, which could be fiscal watch, fiscal cost, or fiscal emergency. So that won't happen for probably a good year, as long as we can come up with a plan.
Right.
It's just going to be hard, because like I said, the March option is not an option for us. I can't see spending $100,000 for a special election in August to be on the ballot. So that puts us back to November of 2024. So our clock's ticking on, you know, what we can say our recovery plan's going to be. Obviously, it's going to be by reducing our expenditures.
To some extent, yeah. I mean, because you can put in there that you're going to be on the ballot in November, anytime, obviously, in calendar year '24, still not going to collect it, though, until '25.
And it's, well, yeah.
And you
it's-
can't.
Can't
you-
predict for
yeah,
sure that
you-
it'll pass.
Exactly, and that's why you have to make adjustments, you know, so that you are not in that deficit.
You know, and it could go on. We could offset the deficit for next year and then submit the 5-year forecast and have the same thing until we can get there. But as long as we're, you know, making strides, they make it sound like, you know, they won't give us that designation until we're not making progress anymore. So the other thing, you know, is, in speaking of the bond levy, this isn't good. You know, the school, believe it or not, has a credit rating too, just like everybody else. So this, when our levies aren't passed, especially when we don't have a history, last time we had new operating was 2013. And then, you know, it's not good for our, so to speak, credit rating.
Right.
So there's just a lot of variables that we're going to have to work through moving forward.
You still have one more item.
I do. Anything else, Gina? Did you have anything? Okay. Lastly, I ask that the board approve the resolution of urgent necessity for the replacement of the high school boiler. When the boiler was started up this fall, just like at your home when you turn on your heat or furnace for the winter, started having issues with,
Chris, can you help me with that? Thank you, sorry, I didn't mean.
oh, no, that's fine. Oh, yeah. So we called and had some service come in, and due to the age of this, where the issues are, we've already had some money put into maintaining it, and we've been told that we're lucky it lasted as well as it did, but that goes back to, you know, keeping it well-maintained and taking care of it, having it serviced, but, and also due to the timing, the reason it's urgent necessity, normally this is something that we would have to bid out, but we could be looking at April by the time we would get a new boiler in. So by doing urgent necessity, we waive that right, so we can hopefully have a new boiler in close to the end of December, early January. So do you want to add?
And how many quotes did we have?
We had 2 quotes that included installation, and then we had 1 quote that was just for the boiler only. It didn't include installation. It was from a distributor. So,
And we did look at the possibility of, because we have 2 boilers at the high school. This is just one of the 2. And so the one boiler will get us through to about 10 degrees, where it's still very comfortable in the high school. But we obviously know probably in the month of January, we're going to see temperatures probably below that, even though they're calling for an El Nino. Don't tell your students at home that, because they might not get as many days off, or I'm just telling you that, but anyway, we looked at the opportunity of renting a portable one. That would be $12,000 a month, while we would have a time frame to bid this out. But we believe, and I wish the picture was better. It looks better on my computer than it does on the image up there. But on the bottom, my left-hand side, what typically happens with a boiler, because the room is, there's moisture in there, you're going to see some exterior rust and so forth on that in the bottom section. But ultimately, we have to have them inspected, and so through our process of having it inspected as well as then firing them up, we discovered there was an issue. It wasn't going to pass inspection, and we had some company come out and look at it, and we determined that it was better to just replace it at this point versus putting money into it that may or may not have fixed it. That was the issue, is, we could have dumped a ton of money into it. It may have fixed it or may not have fixed it, because you can't see, to some degree, some of the internal piece of the bottom of it. So ultimately, that's why we're asking for this to happen. Neil Raymond, our Director of Operations, and Brian Trzynski have been integral in working with these companies to get quotes, as well as procurement on these types of things is our concern, right? Because at one point we were hearing it was taking a year to get these, once you ordered them. So we're fortunate to, we hope to have this done. Our goal is before Christmas break, but, we think we're going to have it done in the next 2 months. So that's our goal moving forward.
You said it was,
We have a
it's like
quote.
40 years old, lifespan, roughly?
Yeah.
I think it's over 40.
It's over
Yeah.
40.
Are both boilers the same age?
No. Neil's shaking his head, no. I don't know the exact age of the boiler, the second boiler. So,
What are the quotes that we had for the labor? I thought you had that.
No, I have. The estimate for this is $128,775. The other quote, hold on, I thought I had them in here.
Neil, do you
Was
remember-
$195,000. Well, $180,117. But there were some things with that. And then the actual quote for just the, I might have cut that off on the page. We had copier problems at the end of the day, so everything I, yeah, just the boiler. Do you remember what that was, Neil? Okay,
17?
but that didn't include installation, so we're doing the boiler and installation for $128,775.
Okay.
But just like at home, right, if you started up your furnace, you may be fortunate to have somebody come in, fix that. Next time you go to start it up, maybe the next year, it may not start, right? And you have to buy a new one. That's what we're dealing with here, is that it passed inspection, it was working previous years, and now we're at this situation.
And just to explain, the process, the normal process would exceed the timeframe to send it out to bids, wait for the certain time period to get it back. So this is the exception to be able to do it in a quicker timeframe, as long as you all agree to the terms that make sense. Otherwise, it would be past the winter months. And even if we have the one secured, there's always a backup for these type systems like this that are in a big building, so.
Normally, we would, like tonight, we would authorize the treasurer to seek bids. Then we'd get the bids, open the bids. So the next month, the board would approve the bids. So we're into December. And then that's where the process goes on. So it's just, this is just.
Then you're gonna be another 2 months out from that, and you're gonna
Right.
be into February. Be probably before you get it.
We don't do this very often, but it's
Right.
just when there's urgent necessity, so we need to make sure we have heat in our high school, so. But that's all I have.
Okay.
I know. Woo-hoo.
Any other questions for, on any of that? If not, I need a motion to approve.
I guess just for
Oh, I'm
both, is there any update, not to add more headache to us for prices and things like that, the seat belt bill? Is there
So,
any update on
yeah,
that?
so the committee that's looking at that is still looking at it, basically. I know that the committee got opinions from a company in regards to what they expected the cost to be. I know Avon Lake did a pilot, and they emphasized to them that the cost as well as the the cost obviously to put the retrofit buses and have them in there, but also the cost of personnel, additional personnel on the buses, because, obviously your primary buildings, you're going to struggle to get them in seatbelts and so forth. And there's a lot more than just approving that. So I think we'll know more in probably the next month or two. Yeah.
And wasn't that a phase-in project anyways, if it does go through?
I believe
wouldn't be a-
they've discussed, if they decide to do it, that it would be a 5-year phase-in.
Yeah,
But still,
Just added cost.
yeah, when you talk about busing, we've had the fortunate opportunity to buy 3 to 4 buses a year for the last couple of years, but we have over 50 buses.
right.
So you're going to buy buses that have some seat belts, but then you're still going to have to retrofit a number of buses.
The people that also did the pilot, they also had concerns even with the safety of it.
Yeah.
For example, not being able to get out
Yeah, sure.
in different situations and so forth.
Yeah.
Sure.
And please understand that our comments are not associated with an evaluation of the safety versus cost. It's just, we're trying to be realistic with the costs for that discussion.
All right. Anything else? Need a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Jana? And a second, please.
I'll second.
And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes?
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you. I think that's the longest treasurer's report I've ever experienced.
Felt like it too. No, I'm
Yeah. Thank you. Now superintendent educational reports. Jim?
Thank you. We've done the first 2. I want to move on to congratulating our Anthony Wayne boys golf team first. We have the great opportunity to celebrate a state championship, the first since 2003 with our softball team at that time. So Logan Sudo, Miles Murphy, Ian Briers, Michael Cisfano, and Ted Robertson. I gotta congratulate those young men. I was able to be there on Friday and observe them play. It's just, I wish I could score somewhat close to what they score. That'd be the round of my life. You know, they just were phenomenal, and just the poise and ability to overcome some difficult conditions on one of the most difficult courses in the state. You know, they just were phenomenal. I can't thank the coaches enough, Pat Phillips and Jeremy Twilliger, for the work that they did over the year to, you know, keep them calm, keep them going, keep them moving forward. So we appreciate that as well. You know, and I'm not sure we're going to see that again. That was such a special group of golfers, you know, of 5 very, very, very good golfers. And when you win the district meet, I think by 23 strokes, it's just incredible, I think it was, you know. So it's just amazing, that performance this year and into the state championship and winning it. I also want to recognize Connor Long and Haley Call. You know, they competed last Saturday at the state cross-country meet. Connor got an 8th place. Haley, you know, and Connor, I'll go back to Connor quick. You know, up until the state meet, he'd won every meet that he ran in, I believe, by a lot. You know, or maybe just a few seconds in the last meet before state. But anyways, he did phenomenal and had a great career here in Anthony Wayne. Haley, first year running, you know, gets to state, you know, as a senior running cross country.
She was injured at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, injured, you know, and had the opportunity to go to state and compete and did a great job. She's going to continue her track and cross country career at Ohio State. You know, so we congratulate her not only on jumping into something new, but also for persevering and through an injury and just a performance that it took to get to there and then to perform that way.
I think they said she actually only ran like 6 races total,
Yeah,
you know, in her career, and to have a career, and you're running 6 races and
yeah,
completing at the top end of the state.
Yeah, cool.
That's awesome.
yeah. And want to thank the coaches, Kevin O'Connor and Craig Smith, for working with those kids. You know, they've created an atmosphere amongst track and also cross country that kids want to go out and be a participant of all ability levels. And that's phenomenal. I love to see it. Their numbers have grown tremendously. Kevin and I had an opportunity to go out and talk to them as they were getting ready to run a training run out at Oak Openings back in, I think, August. You know, and just a great group of kids. So we thank them, we congratulate them on their performances because it was truly phenomenal.
We also did have a sophomore golfer
Yes,
for the girls' team that made it to states as well, Sophia Stanton.
yeah,
And she represented us very well as well.
she did. Got to see her play a few holes. She commented that she was extremely nervous on that first tee, and I can imagine so. I mean, it was, you know, being that at state as a sophomore, it's incredible. So congratulations to her. The next item, calendars. School calendars, exciting conversation, let me tell you. But we do have a calendar committee that's represented, and some of the representatives are here tonight on that committee. And we have created 4 different options that we're still reviewing and still looking at as potential of a final option to present to you in December for your approval for the 24-25 school year and the 25-26 school year. There's not really a lot you can do with the school calendar because of all the requirements that are there as far as the hours that you need, high school credits that you need as far as hours and how that plays into that, where the breaks are at as far as the winter break and spring break, and Thanksgiving being in there, and some of the contractual agreements that we have. You know, the calendar has some variances, and I think we've made some changes based on the input of the staff on the committee, and we're excited to put that out into some of our employees for their review and provide feedback to us. So more to come on that, but just know that's still a work in progress. But I just kind of wanted to put that in front of you so you could see some of those options moving forward. Last one, November levy results. I talked a little bit about this obviously earlier. You know, I am committed to getting feedback from all stakeholders. And so we'll have some opportunities that we will communicate out to the stakeholders in regards to what their feelings are and why it didn't pass, and maybe some potential options moving forward. So look for that to come, and we're going to try to communicate that out as much as possible so that we also are getting feedback from those who do not have students in our district and don't work here, but live in our community. So that will be coming in the near future. We do have some items to talk about this school calendar. As you have probably saw in the news, many of the school districts in Lucas County have already canceled classes for the solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024. If you know anything about that day, the timing of it is what's a concern, because our buses will be out on the roads at that time and/or picking up kids at our primary buildings, as well as the pre and post light experience that we're all going to see on that day. And we're right in the line of it. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be right here. And what we're hearing from emergency management professionals is that we should expect, in Northwest Ohio, over 1 million people coming here to be in hotels, to be on our roads, to view this, because we're one of the more populated areas where this is going to go through on a direct line. And so there's concerns about cell phone service, there's concerns about EMS services and fire services because of all these people and issues and so forth. And so I'm recommending that we use that as a calamity day, where students would be home, staff would be home. And we're talking with staff about some things related to that moving forward. Election day, as Carrie mentioned earlier, we always had, in the last 10 or so years, the first Tuesday in May has typically been an election day in the state of Ohio. The state legislature, who sets that date, moved it to March 19th for the presidential primary, okay? And in doing so, we received a letter last week from the Lucas County Board of Elections saying, please remember, it's on March 19th, 2024, and we're going to be using 3 of your buildings for the presidential primary. We've typically not had school on that day, where we have professional development for our staff. So what I'm asking to do is, on May 7th, that we currently have it listed as a non-school day for students and professional development day for staff, that we just simply move that to March 19th of 2024. So we're just flip-flopping the days, okay, for that purpose. So that's the changes to the current calendar that I'm asking you to approve. Overnight trips, we just have 1 for spring break for varsity and JV baseball. Educational agreements, there are 4 listed there. Those are for individual services for students. I will mention one of those at this time in a little bit more detail. You see the Liberty Education Center, that's for an individual student who has specialized needs, and we have to send, we're sending that student per their service agreement to that institution, or that school, educational facility. And those are things that happen, as Carrie mentions, that can increase your purchase services cost as you move forward. And you never know when a student is going to move into your district, and it could result in something like this where they need specialized services and you then have to increase your expenditures in that area. I just mentioned that because ultimately, as we talk about increased purchase services, and I mentioned that, for the levy, that's one of the things we were trying to help offset. Those are things that increase our expenditures moving forward potentially. That's all I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, well, transportation's the same way, where we have to you guys make the decision whether it's more efficient to basically, pay an individual to drive somebody to a school versus, sending a whole bus and a driver, which we don't have enough of already. But there's a lot of extraordinary costs like that I think
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize, because we don't have a choice but to educate everyone that comes in the door,
Yeah.
that's our.
Our district, yeah.
And I will share that whenever we have that situation, we do always make sure, like, we try to find to be able to provide the service in the least expensive way.
Right.
And some of those students will be out of our district because of their situations, and we have to transport them back to our district. And then thus, we have to assess, how's that going to be? Is that going to be on a bus? Is that going to be, which you're just picking up a student? Are you going to Uber? Are you going to taxi? Are you going to, what options do you have? And sometimes you can make an agreement with the parent to do the transportation. So those things do happen moving forward, so. Any other questions? If not, I'd ask you to approve A through D at this time.
Well, just one more comment too, I was just going to add on the levy, I think we are talking about how to reach the general community more and get feedback on that, I think, just because, I don't know what the percentage, it's a very high percentage of our community that's paying for the school do not have any kids here. You have that constant battle of, hey, we got to do what's right for the parents, hey, we got to do what's for the community. And the much higher percentage is the community that's paying for the schools and convincing them. And obviously, it's much easier to reach the parents because we have all the parents' emails and phone numbers to contact and to push that information out. And it's on the website, but the larger community and the older population that may not be as technology savvy, and pushing out that information, but there's a cost to that too, sending out newsletters, sending out information. So there is a struggle, and we are talking about, what are the most effective ways to get out there and reach the public. It's disheartening to see some of the comments that say we didn't listen to the public when we reached out to the public and did the surveys and we opened up the auditorium and said, what questions do you guys have? And here's the information, and please give us the feedback. And it was all online, and that's the feedback we got, and that's what we asked for. And then he said, oh, you're not listening to us. So it's that constant struggle with how do you get out there and get that message out there? And we need to do better, obviously, to reach some of those people and to do that. But I think that's just a comment. I think that's one of the challenges, obviously, to get out there. So.
Anything else? If not, I need a motion to approve the
I'll move to
superintendent.
approve
Troy,
as proposed.
and a second, please.
I'll second.
Hey, Jana beat you.
Jana? Okay. Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes?
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All righty. Thank you for that. And now your personnel recommendations, Jim.
Thank you. First, resignations and retirements. We have a staff member who's resigning from that position to take another position as a midday bus driver. Item B, you have individuals that we are going to employ in those positions as listed. Item C are substitute employees in the different areas, whether it be certified, classified, nurse, and athletic workers and ticket takers. Item D, volunteers as listed, and I want to thank those individuals both for volunteering in athletics. Item E, limited supplemental contracts, those three that are listed there as more athletic positions as we get closer to the spring season. And then item F, supplemental contracts for those individuals as we continue to fill supplemental positions. And then item G are contract amendments as listed. So I'd ask that you approve those at this time unless you have questions.
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Kyle, in a second, okay. Jeff was second.
Jeff.
And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes?
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All righty, thank you, Jim, for all those tidbits of information.
Yep.
At this part, or point of the meeting, we are on to our recognition of visitors. And we have one for today, and that's Deb Jacoby. If you would please come forward and state your name.
I am Debbie Jacoby. I am a staff member at Waterville Elementary, and I've been pretty vocal about being a cheerleader for Anthony Wayne. And my mom and dad raised me with a lot of tough love. And my dad always told me that opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, and they stink. So we need to rely on facts. Facts provide us with tools and solutions. And I certainly hope that we can set our differences aside and come together for the sake of the children. Let's not let the education of our children suffer. And we need to set the example for our kids. We need to lead by example, teaching our kids to help others and stand up for what is right. We shouldn't hide behind fake profiles and use falsehoods to emotionally appeal to people just to disrupt and divide our community. We can agree to disagree, but we shouldn't pass falsehoods just to justify our positions. We need to rely on the facts. Disinformation is the deliberate spreading of falsehoods to promote an agenda. Misinformation can be corrected. Our only agenda should be, how are we going to give our kids the best education? We need to stand together, find our common ground, and keep the Anthony Wayne Community and School District a great place to live to educate our children. I want to thank the current school board candidates for their service, and good luck to the new school board candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. And that is, okay, there's Jim's playlist. Anyways, at this point, we're finished with all of our business, so I need a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I'll move to adjourn.
And a second, please. Jana? Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn? Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Our next meeting is December 11th at 8 a.m. Thank you all for attending.